My mom would take pride in telling her friends that one day her daughter was going to Yale. As a 7-year-old, this both excited me and frustrated me. Now imagine how I felt when I found out my mother was telling her friends with pride that one day her daughter was going to jail. Of course, she meant Yale, but my mom's pronunciation is more than a bit off at times. She came to the United States from Peru 20 years ago, not knowing the first thing about speaking English. I've often had to help her out when she writes emails, uploads something to her Facebook, and I've had to pretend to be her on the phone. There were times when she mispronounced something during the conversation, and I later had to tell her how to say it correctly in order to avoid her other friends thinking I would become a criminal. And even though I still have to help her out with these things on a regular basis, 20 years later, my mom has achieved bilingualism. She can communicate in English and Espanol. About half of the world is bilingual, and that number is expected to grow significantly in the next 20 to 30 years. Today, we will take a look at what bilingualism is, how to become bilingual as well as its challenges, and finally, how being bilingual can benefit us as individuals and connect us as a whole. Let's get down to it. What is bilingualism? The dictionary defines bilingual as speaking 2 languages fluently. It is reported by ilanguages.com that about 60% of the entire world is either bilingual or multilingual. This means that the remaining 40% is made up of monolinguals, or people who only speak one language. And these numbers change in the United States, where only a little over 20% of the population can speak more than one idioma. A possible explanation for such a change in these numbers is because children around the world are encouraged from a young age to learn more than one language, but this is not often the case in the US. A common situation of bilingualism in the US is in immigrant families who will learn English as a second language when they immigrate to the country, like mi mamá. Another common situation is learning a second language at school. Sometimes this is referred to as bilingual education or a dual language program where a student is taught in 2 different languages. Other times there are designated classes to study another language, like French or Japanese, for example. Taking such classes can lead not just to bilingualism, but biliteracy. While bilingual means speaking 2 languages, biliterate means reading and writing in 2 languages. Many states in the US, as shown in dark blue, offer what is called a seal of biliteracy, which appears on a high school diploma and was created in 2008 by an organization called Californians Together. It recognizes students who have shown proficiency in 2 or more languages and passed a language exam before high school graduation. According to the Seal of Biliteracy official website, the seal honors the skills our students attain and can be evidence of skills that are attractive to future employers and college admissions offices. Who knew that high school diploma were thousands and thousands and thousands of soul-crushing hours may actually pay off? There are different ways a person can become bilingual. As previously mentioned, there's the scenario of an immigrant familia. The adults and teenagers in that familia will learn the country's native language when they move there. In contrast, the children will be learning 2 languages at the same time. They will be more easily fluent in the second language and be least likely to adopt a foreign accent. To become bilingual, it is recommended to study for at least 1 hour a day, because it can take hundreds of hours to gain fluency in another language. This is also recommended to begin learning as early as possible. The earlier you are exposed to a language, the easier it'll be to master it. This is because of what is known as language acquisition. Language acquisition is the process in which someone gains the ability to communicate and comprehend in a language. It is believed that language acquisition begins around the time we are born and ends around the time we reach puberty. This theory could explain why it is easier for children to learn languages than it is for adults. That's only one downside when it comes to bilingualism. For bilinguals, verbal skills can be limited. Having two languages constantly in their head, it becomes more likely to jumble words as they speak or use slang vocabulary. One could mispronounce, overpronounce, or even combine their two languages when they speak. I myself have my fair share of stories in which I spoke Spanglish, where English is unintentionally mixed into a Spanish sentence, or vice versa. I mean, hey, I only called my second grade teacher abuelita once. It is also common to use a word in one language that means something completely different in another language, which is often a result of the two words sounding similar. For example, I used to think that embarrassed in Spanish was embarazada. They sound similar enough, but actually embarazada in Spanish means pregnant. And in front of your real abuelita, you do not want to make that mistake. Another disadvantage of bilingualism is that you tend to prefer one language over the other, so that language becomes dominant and fluency is gradually lost in the other. Therefore, if you want to be bilingual, you must really engage yourself in the language you are trying to learn. Or if you are bilingual, to practice your non-dominant language regularly and strengthen it back up. In spite of these inconveniences, being bilingual does come with its advantages. You may remember that the seal of biliteracy can help you with future employers. This is true. Many trabajos are opening up in which bilingualism is not only desired, but required. As Matt Schwartz wrote in his article, The Career Advantages of Being Bilingual, taking the time to learn a second language demonstrates a strong work ethic that is attractive to any employer. Bilingual employees have a useful skill that can translate into increased revenue for the company. And as a result, some companies will compensate these employees accordingly. In 2012, Swedish psychology researcher Johan Martinsson published a study in which he examined the cognitive benefits of the brain. He and other scientists examined and compared the brains of bilingual students to the brains of monolingual students through MRI scans. The results of the study showed that those who had practiced a foreign language had an increase in brain size. This increase is associated with having more room in the brain to store information. It can be connected to what is known as the bilingual advantage, which is the skill areas where bilinguals outperform monolinguals. Such areas include one's listening skills, memorization skills, and the ability to learn new vocabulario. Furthermore, Tori Myler wrote in an article for the Omniglot, since bilingual people constantly switch between their two languages, they're likely to also be better at switching between different tasks. Being bilingual can assist us in becoming multicultural. Being multicultural gives us the opportunity to learn, to be aware of other ethnic groups, which in turn gives us the opportunity to be more empathetic to others, and better understand things that may have once seemed foreign to us. This all adds up to one of the most important things in life: communication. Whether we're traveling another country, translating for a foreigner, or simply interacting with anyone under any circumstances, we will always need communication. My middle school basketball coach would tell the team, communication is key to a successful relationship. We lost every single game, but as a team, we became close because we communicated and worked together. Bilingualism and communication work together. We get the opportunity to talk to people that are different than us, similar to us, and everything in between. We agree, we disagree, we joke, we fight, but it is important that we understand each other. This way, we learn more about the world we live in. We may even learn that we are not that diferente after all. So, while there is a long way to go from prison to one of the nation's best universities, I hope you take the time to think about this. No matter which languages you speak, how many languages you speak, or even how well you speak them. Speak with kindness and speak with pride. Gracias.